My father sat me down at a family dinner and told me to sign my house over to my brother. Because his girlfriend was pregnant. Because apparently that made it mine to give away. I said I'd think about it. Then I drove home, called a locksmith, and changed every lock in the house before the sun came up the next morning. I want to be clear about something before I get into the rest of it. My parents were never cruel. Nobody hit me. Nobody screamed at me. I had food, clothes, a roof, all the boxes checked. On paper, I had a completely normal childhood. But there's a difference between being raised and being an afterthought, and I spent 28 years learning that difference the hard way. My brother Derek is 3 years older than me. If you'd asked anyone in my family to describe him growing up, you'd have heard words like spirited, and a lot of personality, and he just needs the right opportunity. If you asked them to describe me, you'd get responsible and low maintenance, which I eventually figured out was just a nicer way of saying, we don't have to think about her. I'm not going to walk you through every single receipt from my childhood, because we'd be here all day, but I'll give you the flavor of it. When I was 11, I wanted a bike. I babysat, I raked leaves, I did extra chores for months, and I bought a used one off a guy 3 streets over for $35. It had a bent kickstand and mismatched tires, and I loved it because it was mine. Derek mentioned one time in passing that he also wanted a bike. My dad took him to the shop that weekend and came home with a $400 mountain bike. When I asked why, my dad said Derek needed something reliable for school. I was riding a Frankenstein bike held together with hope. Derek needed reliability. That was the pattern for the next decade. I made honor roll every single semester of high school. Nobody mentioned it twice. Derek barely passed most of his classes and got invited to more parties than I could count, and somehow that translated in my parents' minds into him being the one with real potential. When Derek got a C, they hired him a tutor. When I brought home my only B in AP chemistry, my mother told me I needed to manage my time better. I used to be bitter about it. If I'm honest, some small ember of that never fully went out. But by the time I hit my 20s, I'd made peace with the shape of my family. Some households just run that way. There's a favorite, and there's everyone else, and everyone else learns to stop expecting an even split. Here's the thing nobody warns you about, though. Being the everyone else kid actually built something in me that Derek never got the chance to build. He learned that someone would always catch him. I learned that nobody was going to catch me, so I'd better learn how to land. After high school, I went to community college and paid for every semester myself, working the overnight shift at a distribution warehouse. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., loading pallets, unloading trucks, drinking gas station coffee at 3 in the morning to stay upright. It paid $11 an hour. It was enough. Derek went to a 4-year university 2 states away on my parents' dime, full tuition, a car, a monthly allowance. When I asked one time if they could help me with textbooks for a single semester, not tuition, just books, my father told me it would build character, to earn it myself. Funny how character only needed building in one of their children. I finished my associate's degree and landed an entry-level job as a claims adjuster. I lived with 2 roommates in an apartment where the bathroom apparently cleaned itself, judging by how often anyone but me touched it. I drove a car that broke down more than it ran. And every single month I put something away. Some months it was $60. Some months it was $400. I had one goal: own a house before I turned 30. My own bank's mortgage advisor looked at me like I'd told her I was training for the Olympics at 40. I did it anyway. Meanwhile, Derek drifted. He'd take a job, decide within 6 months that it wasn't his passion, quit, and move back into my parents' house to figure things out. This happened 4 times in 5 years. Every single time, my parents welcomed him back like a war hero: no rent, home-cooked meals, zero pressure to hurry up and grow. By 26, I had almost $38,000 saved. I found a 3-bedroom ranch on the edge of town, needed work, but the bones were solid. I negotiated the price down myself, put 20% down, and at 28 years old I owned a house. Nobody co-signed. Nobody gifted me a down payment. Nobody even offered. My parents came to see it exactly once. They walked through for maybe 15 minutes, made a few comments about the dated kitchen and the long drive out from their side of town, and left. No congratulations. No, we're proud of you. Just an inventory of everything wrong with it. That was fine. I hadn't bought it for them. Every creaky floorboard in that house, every uneven door frame, every drafty window in February, it was mine. Earned, not given. Nothing anyone could ever take away. Or so I thought. Fast forward almost 3 years. I'm 30 now. The house is in genuinely good shape. I'd redone the kitchen myself, refinished the floors, replaced the roof. The neighborhood had come up too. A couple of young families had moved in, property values had climbed, and the little fixer-upper I'd bought for a steal was suddenly worth close to 60% more than I paid. Not that I had any plans to sell. I liked my life there. I'd put down roots. Derek, over those same 3 years, had been living with his girlfriend Michelle in a rental across town. A nicer place than my first apartment, honestly, but rent kept climbing and he kept complaining about throwing money away. He worked in sales at a car dealership. She worked at a salon. Between them they made decent money and spent decent money, new phones every year, weekend trips, take out more nights than not. Financial discipline was not really a hobby of theirs. Then Michelle got pregnant. And suddenly Derek didn't just want to be a homeowner. He needed to be one because apparently, and this was news to the millions of people who manage it just fine, you cannot raise a child in an apartment. He started house hunting. Quickly discovered that everything in his budget needed serious work, and everything move-in ready was well outside what he could afford, especially with a baby on the way. Michelle had strong feelings about what kind of home she wanted to bring their daughter home to. I heard about all of this secondhand through my mother, who started calling weekly with updates like I was supposed to be emotionally invested in Derek's real estate search. I made the appropriate sympathetic noises and went back to my life. Then one Sunday evening my father called. Wanted to know if I could come to dinner that night. A family meeting, he called it. I should have known right then. My family does not do family meetings. We do birthdays, we do the occasional holiday, and we do ambushes disguised as dinners. But curiosity got the better of me and I went. At first, I thought it was just another one of my mother's guilt trip check-ins. Then things got a lot more interesting. I showed up at 6. My mother had made pot roast and the good dishes were out, the ones reserved for holidays or for whenever she's trying to impress someone into doing something. Derek and Michelle were already there. Michelle was about 6 months along, glowing in one of those flowy maternity dresses, and everyone at that table was cheerful in a way that felt rehearsed. My mother hugged me at the door, which she basically never does. My father shook my hand. Derek gave me a half smile that looked almost like an apology before I even knew what he was apologizing for. Warning bells. I ignored them because the pot roast smelled incredible and I was hungry. Dinner itself was almost normal. Derek talked about the nursery they were setting up, the name they'd picked, gone from my memory 5 seconds after he said it, and Michelle showed me ultrasound photos on her phone, those grainy black and white blobs that all look identical to me. I said the right things. Wow, that's amazing. Oh yeah, I can totally see the nose. Is that a foot? Underneath it, the tension in that dining room was thick enough to spread on bread. Nobody was saying the actual thing. We were all just circling it. Then my mother brought out dessert. Apple pie. My favorite, which she never makes unless she wants something big. The last time she'd made that pie was when she wanted me to spend a weekend helping Derek move apartments. The time before that, she wanted to borrow my truck for 2 weeks. The pie wasn't dessert. The pie was a warning shot. That should have been the end of the pleasant part of the evening. It wasn't. My father set down his fork carefully, the way you do when you've rehearsed something in the car on the way over. We wanted to talk to you about something important, he said. A family matter. I put my fork down too. Okay. Derek and Michelle are starting a family, he said, as if I hadn't just spent 40 minutes hearing about exactly that. They need a real home for this baby. Not an apartment. That makes sense, I said, still no idea where this was going. The market's rough right now. Everything's so expensive, my mother chimed in. They've been looking for months. Nothing in their budget works for a baby. I glanced at Derek. He was suddenly very interested in his pie. That should have told me everything. That's rough, I said. Maybe they need to widen the search radius. Or look at a fixer-upper. That's actually what we wanted to talk about, my father said, leaning forward, hands clasped like he was pitching a business deal. Your house. It's perfect for them. I actually laughed before I caught myself. I'm sorry, what? You live there alone, my mother said. 3 bedrooms just for you? Derek needs the space for an actual family. So he should find a house with 3 bedrooms, I said slowly. The thing is, my father said, you bought at exactly the right time. You got lucky with the market. Derek can't afford what you paid, let alone what it's worth now. That's not luck, I said, feeling my jaw tighten. I saved for 6 years. I worked 2 jobs some of those years. I bought what I could afford and I fixed it up with my own hands. Right, he said, waving a hand like the details were beside the point. But the reality is you have something Derek needs. And family helps family. The table went silent. My mother was nodding like he'd said something profound. Michelle was staring at her plate. Derek still wasn't looking at me. What exactly are you suggesting? I asked, even though some sick part of me already knew. Sign the house over to Derek, my father said. Simple as that. Like he was asking me to pass the salt. You're single. No kids. You can live anywhere. Get a nice apartment. Derek needs that house for his family. You want me to give Derek my house. Not give, my mother corrected quickly. We'd help you with first and last month's rent somewhere nice. I own a house, I said. Why would I trade it for an apartment because my brother needs it more? Because he's got a baby coming, my father snapped, that edge creeping into his voice, the one he gets when he thinks he's being perfectly reasonable and everyone else is being difficult. You're established in your career. No dependents. You can afford to rent. I can afford to rent, I said, because I don't have to. Because I own a house I bought with my own money. It's just a house, my mother said. Family is more important than property. Then why doesn't family help Derek buy his own house? I shot back. You paid for his college. His car. Let him move back in rent-free 4 separate times. Why not help him with a down payment now? We would if we could, my father said, which I happened to know for a fact was a lie, because I knew exactly how much they had sitting in savings. We're just not in a position to do that right now. This is the solution that makes sense. For who? I said. Because it's not making sense for me. Think about the baby, Michelle said suddenly, the first thing she'd said in 10 minutes. Don't you want your niece to have a good home? Sure, I said. I'd also like to have a home. Preferably the one I already bought. Derek finally spoke up. Come on. You know how hard it is out there right now. I'm just trying to do right by my family. I thought you'd get that. I understand you want my house, I said. What I don't understand is why you think you're entitled to it. Entitled? My father's voice sharpened. This is your brother. Asking for help isn't entitled. Asking would be one thing, I said. This is a demand. There's a difference. We're not demanding anything, my mother said, though her voice had that tight, wounded quality that always meant the opposite. We're asking you to think about what's best for the family. To put your brother first. Like I've done my whole life. The words came out of me before I could stop them. The whole table went dead quiet. What's that supposed to mean? My father asked. Nothing, I said, because I wasn't about to unpack 3 decades of family dynamics over pot roast and apple pie. Look, I'm not signing over my house. Derek needs to find his own place. That's what people do. People who care about their family help each other, my mother said. I'd help him pack, I said. I'd help him move boxes. I'd help him paint. I am not giving him my house. You're being selfish, my father said flatly. I'm being selfish, I repeated. Right. Because I won't hand over the thing I spent 6 years working for. You've always been like this, my mother said, and there was real disappointment in her voice, like I'd finally confirmed some long-held suspicion. Ever since you were little. Only thinking about yourself. That one landed harder than it should have, considering it wasn't remotely true. It's wild how your parents can still find that one nerve, even when you're 30 and you know better. I think I should go, I said, standing. Sit down, my father said. We're not done. Yes, we are, I said. There's nothing to discuss. It's my house. I'm keeping it. End of story. Just think about it, Derek said, like that was the reasonable middle ground. That's all we're asking. I looked at him for a long second. He genuinely believed this was normal. That asking me to hand over my house so he wouldn't have to struggle the way I had was a completely reasonable request between siblings. Let me think about it, I said, and walked out. I want you to understand, at that point I thought that was the end of it. A tense, ugly dinner, a ridiculous ask, and I'd go home and it would fade into the background like every other slight my family had handed me over the years. I had no idea what was actually coming. The whole drive home my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not from anger exactly, more from the sheer audacity of it. They had genuinely sat me down, fed me pot roast, and asked me to sign away my house as if it were a formality, as if I should be relieved they'd even given me the chance to say yes. I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes just staring at the house. The house everyone told me I couldn't afford. The house I'd redone with my own hands, board by board, weekend by weekend. And they wanted me to hand it to Derek because he needed it more. I went inside, locked the door, and stood in my living room looking at the floors I'd refinished myself, the walls I'd painted, the shelving I'd built with a borrowed drill and 3 YouTube tutorials. Every inch of that house had my time in it, my sweat, my money. They could think whatever they wanted. The answer was no. The next morning I called a locksmith. Every lock in the house got swapped, front, back, side, garage. $300 and worth every cent because I know exactly how my family operates. Give them an inch and they'll find a way to take the whole deed. While the locksmith worked, I drove to the hardware store and bought the least polite no trespassing sign they had. Not one of those soft private property please respect ones, an official red and white violators will be prosecuted sign, mounted on a metal post that wasn't coming out of the ground without a fight. I planted it at the end of my driveway visible from the road and photographed it with a timestamp, just in case I ever needed proof of when it went up. Then I got serious. I called my bank and put a verbal authorization requirement on any large transaction. I called my mortgage company and said a passphrase that had nothing to do with my actual life. I called the county recorder's office and spoke with a clerk named Patricia, who, and this told me everything about how common this situation apparently is, walked me through setting up a fraud alert on my property deed. $15. If anyone tried to file so much as a piece of paper related to my house, I'd know immediately. I dug up every document I had, the deed, the closing paperwork, the title insurance, the mortgage records, and locked them in a fireproof safe. Scanned copies went up to 3 separate cloud accounts. I changed every password I owned to something unrecognizable and wrote the new ones down in a notebook that lived in that same safe. At first, I thought I was being paranoid. Then things got a lot worse and I stopped feeling paranoid and started feeling prepared. 2 days of silence passed. I figured they were giving me space to think about it, the way Derek had suggested. Then Wednesday my father showed up at my door. I watched him through the window, parked his car, walked up, tried his old key in the lock, looked confused when it didn't turn and knocked. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "New locks?" he asked. "Yep." "Why?" "They're my locks," I said. "I can change them if I want." "You're actually serious about this?" "Dead serious." "You think I'd try to get in without your permission?" "I think you'll do whatever you decide is necessary to help Derek," I said. "So yeah, I changed the locks." His jaw tightened. "That's what you think of your own father?" "That's what I know," I said, "based on 30 years of evidence." "We raised you better than this." "You raised me to work for what I want," I said. "So that's what I did. I worked for this house. It's mine and I'm keeping it." "Derek needs this house," he said, frustration climbing. "He's got a baby coming. He needs stability." "Then he should have thought about that before he got someone pregnant while living in a rental he can barely afford," I said. "That's not my problem. He's my son. This is my house." "It's my house," I corrected. "You could help him. You're choosing not to. Don't put that on me." He glanced at the no trespassing sign at the end of the driveway, then back at me. "You really think that's necessary? Based on this conversation?" "Yeah." He shook his head. "You've changed. You're not the daughter I raised." "The daughter you raised would have rolled over and done whatever you wanted," I said. "So I guess I have changed." He left without another word. I watched his car pull away, then locked the door and didn't think about it again for the rest of the day. That should have been the end of it. Unfortunately, it wasn't. The next assault came from my mother and it came with tears. She called Friday crying. Genuine tears are a very good impression of them. "Worried about the baby," she said. "Worried about Derek and Michelle's future." "So help them," I said. "You and Dad have money. Give them a down payment." "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple," I said. "You want to help Derek get a house? Help him get a house. Don't volunteer mine. But your house is perfect for them. Then they should find one like it. You're being so cold about this." "I'm being realistic," I said. "I'm 30. I own a house. I'm not giving it up because Derek didn't plan ahead. He's trying to plan now. He's trying to do the right thing." "Good for him," I said. "He can do it without my house." She tried for another 20 minutes, guilt, tears, the whole playbook I'd watched her run on Derek's behalf my entire life, except this time aimed at me. I stayed calm, stayed firm. Eventually she gave up and hung up on me, which felt like a strange kind of victory. That night, Derek texted a long message about how he'd always looked up to me, how he knew we hadn't always been close but thought we were past all that, how he just wanted to do right by his kid. He offered to pay me rent, to treat it like a rent-to-own situation until he could eventually buy the house outright. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. He wasn't moving into my house. Not renting it, not buying it, not getting anywhere near the deed. The weekend was quiet. I actually started to believe it was over. Then Monday, a call came from a number I didn't recognize. A woman introduced herself as a real estate attorney, said she was helping my family with a property transfer, and needed to verify some information. I told her there was no property transfer happening and hung up. Then I called Patricia at the recorder's office again just to triple confirm nobody could touch my deed without my physical presence and 2 forms of ID. Tuesday Michelle showed up alone. She looked exhausted and something about her face made me let her in, against my better judgment. I didn't offer her anything. Just let her sit on my couch while I stood by the door. I know this is weird, she started. Weird's one word for it. Derek's parents, they make things complicated. They're good at that. You could have said something at dinner. I'm 6 months pregnant with their granddaughter, she said. I'm not exactly in a position to push back on family dynamics. Fair point, honestly. I didn't know he was going to ask for your house, she went on. He told me we were just going to dinner. When your dad started talking, I wanted to disappear. I get it, I said. And I meant it. She seemed like a decent person caught in the crossfire of a family war that predated her by decades. We'll figure something out, she said before she left. Without your house. I actually felt bad for her. Not enough to change my mind. Just bad. Wednesday morning, I found my father's car parked at the end of my driveway, empty. He was standing in my backyard just staring at the house. What are you doing? I asked, stepping outside. He turned around. Figured out what you paid for this place. Looked up the records. Also looked up what it's worth now. You've done well for yourself. Thanks. Derek could never afford this. Not at current value. And you still won't help him. I won't give him my house, I said. That's not the same as not helping. What help have you offered then? None, I admitted. Because he hasn't asked me for help. He's asked for my house. Those are different things. My father walked closer, studying my roof, my siding, the yard I'd landscaped myself. You put a lot of work into this place. I did. Shame to see all that go to waste. Something in the way he said it made every hair on my arm stand up. Are you threatening my house? I'm not threatening anything, he said. I'm just saying things happen. Pipes burst. Roofs leak. Electrical fires. Especially when people are stubborn. That's when I learned exactly how far this was going to go. Get out, I said. You're trespassing. Leave. Now. We stood there for a long, ugly minute. Then he shook his head and walked back to his car. I called my insurance company that same afternoon and doubled my homeowner's coverage. Called a security company and had cameras installed on every entry point, driveway included. $800, and I didn't care about the cost at all. That night, I photographed every room in that house, every piece of furniture, every corner, and backed it all up to the cloud. If anything happened to my property, I wanted a paper trail. I also called my friend Marcus, who's a police officer, and walked him through everything. He told me to document every interaction from that point forward, and to call him immediately if anything actually happened. I started a file that night. It would grow a lot fatter before this was over. Thursday and Friday were quiet. I let myself hope again that it was finally winding down. Saturday morning, Derek called, an actual call, not a text, the first time he tried to reach me directly since the dinner. I let it go to voicemail and listened to it later. He sounded wrecked. Said he understood I was upset. Said he was sorry for how the dinner had gone. Said Michelle was crying, his parents were on his case and he didn't know what to do anymore. Asked if we could work something out. Asked me to call him back. I deleted it. Felt a small pang of guilt. Not enough to call him back. Sunday my mother called. I didn't answer and I didn't listen to the voicemail either. Whatever she had to say, I'd already heard some version of it a dozen times that week. Monday a certified letter arrived from a law firm. My stomach dropped when I saw the return address. Inside was a request for family mediation regarding a property dispute. They'd hired an attorney to try to pressure me into a mediation process over my own house. I called my own lawyer, the one I'd used to close on the place. He laughed, which helped more than I expected. They can request mediation all they want, he said. You don't have to agree to a thing. It's your house, your deed, your decision. Unless they're claiming some actual legal interest in the property, which they're not, there's nothing here. So I just ignore it? Better? Let me send a letter telling them to back off. Might cost you a couple $100, but it'll make it very clear you're serious. He sent it that afternoon. Firm, professional, unmistakable. I had zero interest in mediation, the property was solely and legally mine, and any further attempts at pressure would be treated as grounds for a restraining order. 3 days of silence followed. Then Thursday night my doorbell rang at 11 p.m. I checked the camera. Derek, standing on my porch looking like he hadn't slept in a week. I spoke through the intercom instead of opening the door. What do you want? Just to talk. Please. It's 11 at night. I know. I'm sorry. Can I come in? No. I studied him on the screen. He looked genuinely broken, not performing it. You've got 5 minutes, I said and opened the door. He sat on the edge of my couch like he was afraid to actually settle into it. I stayed standing. Michelle's freaking out, he said. She thinks the baby's going to come home to a place that isn't ready. You have an apartment. It's 1 bedroom. We're converting the living room, but it's not what she pictured. Life rarely is, I said. I know I messed up, he said. I should have saved more. Planned better. I can't fix that now. I'm just trying to figure out what to do going forward. Good, I said. That's what adults do. I thought you'd help me. I would have, I said, if you'd asked for actual help. You didn't. You asked for my house. Mom and Dad said. I don't care what they said, I cut in. This is between you and me. And you sat at that table knowing exactly what they were going to ask. You didn't speak up. You didn't say it was too much. You just sat there hoping I'd say yes. You didn't deny it. I worked for this house, I said. 2 jobs some years. Terrible apartments. A car that barely started in the morning. I saved every dollar I could. And you know what I never did? I never asked anyone to hand me anything. I did it myself. That's what you do when nobody's going to bail you out. Not everyone's like you, he said. No, I agreed. Some people want things handed to them. That's not fair. Fair? I actually laughed. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair Mom and Dad paid your full ride while I worked overnight shifts for mine? Was it fair you got a brand new car while I drove a rust bucket held together with duct tape? Was it fair you moved back in rent-free 4 separate times while I've paid my own way since I was 18? I never once complained about any of that. I never asked them to even the score. I just worked harder. But now you want my house and suddenly fairness matters. He was quiet for a long time. Then, what if I paid you for it? Fair market value over time. No. You didn't even think about it. Don't need to, I said. This isn't about money. This house isn't for sale. Not to you. Not to anyone. So what am I supposed to do? What everyone else does, I said. Find a place you can actually afford. Sign a lease or get your own mortgage. Be a dad in whatever space you have. Michelle will be fine. Women have babies in far worse situations than a 1-bedroom apartment. You two will figure it out. Just not with my house. He stood up. You're really not going to budge. Nope. Mom and Dad are right about you. You're selfish. If looking out for myself is selfish, I said, then yeah, I'm selfish. Better than being entitled. He left quietly. No slammed door, no scene. I locked up, checked the cameras and went to bed. The next morning I had 12 missed calls from my mother. Well, I didn't call back. If it was a real emergency, she'd have left a voicemail saying so. She left 3 instead, all some flavor of, how could you be so cruel to your brother? Don't you care about family? What is wrong with you? I deleted all 3. That afternoon my father showed up again, rang the bell, and when I didn't answer, rang it 6 more times before he started knocking. I sat on my couch, watched him on my phone screen and didn't move an inch. He gave up after 10 minutes and left. An hour later he texted, "This isn't over." I blocked his number. Blocked my mother's. Blocked Derek's. If they had something to say they could write a letter. I was done with the phone calls, the guilt trips, and whatever this new chapter of manipulation was going to be. The next few weeks were quiet. No visits, no letters. I actually let myself believe they'd finally accepted it and moved on. Then I got an email alert from the county recorder's office. Someone had requested copies of my property deed. My fraud alert had done exactly what it was supposed to do. I called Patricia immediately and asked who'd made the request. My father. I called my lawyer within the hour. He sent a second letter, considerably less polite than the first, warning of harassment charges and reminding them in plain language that any attempt to fraudulently transfer property without my consent would be a criminal matter, not a family disagreement. That seemed to finally land. The request stopped. 2 days before Derek's move into his new place, I got home from work to find my mother sitting in her car at the end of my driveway. Not trying to get in. Just sitting there watching my house like it might change its mind. I parked in the garage and went inside without acknowledging her. She stayed for 2 hours before she finally left. The day Derek moved into his new apartment, I got a group text. Not from him, from my mother. Photos of the new place, the half-set-up nursery, boxes everywhere. The caption, Derek's new home. So proud of him for doing this on his own. The capital letters felt very deliberate. I muted the thread and didn't respond. 3 months later, another group text arrived with a photo of the baby. I looked at it for about 5 seconds. A newborn, red and wrinkled, indistinguishable from any other newborn on the planet, typed "Congratulations," and left the group chat entirely. A week after the birth, my mother sent one more message. Said I should come meet my niece. Said family mattered, especially now. Said they were having a small get-together that Sunday and I should come. I didn't respond. That Sunday at 2 in the afternoon, I was at the hardware store buying supplies for a bathroom renovation. I saw the missed calls afterward. I didn't listen to the voicemails. A month after that, I ran into Derek at the grocery store, almost walked straight into him in the produce section. He had the baby strapped to his chest in one of those carriers, asleep, wearing a tiny pink hat. "Hey," he said. "Hey." Awkward silence. The baby made a small sleeping noise. "She's cute," I said, mostly because it seemed like the thing to say. "Thanks." "I've got to go," I said before he could say anything else. I grabbed my apples and walked to a different aisle. I heard him say my name once behind me. I kept walking. 2 weeks after that, Michelle showed up at my door, alone, no baby. I almost didn't answer, but something made me open it. I didn't invite her in. 5 minutes, she said. That's it. Timer starts now. Derek's miserable, she said. He knows he messed up. He knows his parents messed up too. He wants to apologize, but he doesn't know how. Not my problem. I get it, she said. I get why you're done with all of this. But the baby, your niece, she didn't do anything wrong. Never said she did, I said. She'll grow up not knowing her aunt, that's true. Lots of kids grow up not knowing relatives. She'll survive. That's pretty cold. That's pretty smart, I corrected. I learned a long time ago that my family takes whatever you give them and asks for more the second they get comfortable. So I'm not giving them anything else to work with. She nodded slowly. Okay. I tried. She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. For what it's worth, I think you're right about all of it. What they asked you to do was insane. I would have said no too. Thanks. Derek's a good dad though. And the apartment's fine. The baby's happy. We're making it work. Good, I said, and I meant that part completely. I'm glad it worked out. She left, and that was the last time anyone from that side of my family showed up on my porch. It's been almost a year now. I still own my house. Still sleep easy in it. I still have my cameras, my fraud alert, my file of documented conversations sitting untouched in a drawer I hope I never need to open again. My parents haven't reached out since the unblocking would require, and I haven't reached out either. Derek and Michelle are, from what I hear through the family grapevine I no longer participate in, doing fine in their apartment. The baby's healthy. Nobody's homeless. Nobody's on the street. But some nights I do think about that little girl growing up without ever knowing who I am. I think about whether 20 years from now she'll hear some version of this story where I'm the villain who wouldn't hand over a house so her father could give her a real childhood. I think about whether I was too hard on Derek, who, whatever his flaws, didn't build this situation alone. He just inherited a family that taught him he'd always get bailed out, and then got blindsided when the bailout finally had a locked door on it. I don't regret keeping my house. I built that life with my own 2 hands while everyone told me I couldn't. I'm just not entirely sure, some nights, whether protecting it had to cost me my whole family to do it. AITA for changing the locks and cutting off my entire family instead of even considering giving my brother the house I spent 6 years earning on my own?